Hey there, welcome to today's episode of the Coffee Solo audio program. It is 7:42 in the morning on September 6, 2025. It's Saturday early morning. That makes this episode 2025-09-0601, if you're keeping score. The title of today's episode, My Head Hurts. I have written out some notes for today. I know I've mentioned before I'm going to try to keep this one, not keep it, but lean towards some spontaneity. So we'll see. I don't normally when I write my shows, my different episodes of different programs through the week, I do subsections with 3 items each, the rule of 3. I don't do that here. I just create an outline, and sometimes I fill in the outline with things I want to make sure I say. So I'll have actual, things I would read verbatim. And then other times I'll just have the root idea and see where it goes. So today I have a few things jotted down and I have the title selected. I did not create any cover art yet. I do have the summary written, which I'll read real quickly. Have you ever spent 80 minutes in a chat with something that may very well be a robot, repeating things back to me when it does not know the answer, claiming to be a member of the support team, capital S, capital T, for the entity causing you trouble? Well, luckily there is nothing else going on in the world, so I can rant about that. So that's the summary for today's episode. It's just thinking about it really bothers me. The links I've been readjusting for all of my programs now that I have websites for everything, which are still works in progress. I'm working on it. Profile page linking everything is still buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo. I want to de-emphasize the buy Dan a coffee, I think is what I used to call it. You can buy me a coffee if you want, but there's no obligation to spend any money. I'm moving, well, not really moving. I have affiliate links on that profile page for the coffees I drink and some other products that I actually use. That seems a little bit more reasonable if someone says, oh, I would like to try Shock. I think it's Shock coffee, which I actually, despite the name, which is kind of annoying, but it's actually really good. And because the Black Diamond coffee I used to get, which was also fabulous, I guess they stopped selling it. I couldn't find any more of it. But these I enjoy these coffees. So if somebody said, hey, I want to try that, have at it. I have an affiliate link there through Amazon. So it doesn't cost you anything and all that. So I don't really want to do ad reads or anything if I start moving into some more interesting reach. So yeah, I'm going to basically try to keep it the way it is right now. The websites, well, okay, the profile page linking, everything. So the buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo page has been there for years, and I just update it with links and other information. So no big change there, just changed how I'm referring to it. This program you're listening to, Coffee Solo, you may be listening to it from the Ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo/posts posting area for audio programs. My profile there, I really haven't made so much use of it, but I kind of like the platform better, but they don't have quite as much flexibility as buymeacoffee.com, but also neither Buy Me a Coffee nor Ko-fi, I say it differently because they spell it funny. Neither of them support RSS feeds for either their blog or textual content, the posts, nor are they particularly growing. They're not really kind of keeping up with the times, I think. My opinion. But I have had them forever, for at least forever being about 5 years. So why not stick with the actual links anyway? But Coffee Solo is available via Spotify for creators, so you can find it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and then we'll see about some more places, and the RSS feed. So the exact same audio file is published first on Ko-fi.com, then on Spotify for creators. And same is true of Buy Me an Update. It's published first on Buy Me a Coffee in the post sections there. It's published on Mondays, and then I was almost going to wait. Should I wait a week? No, I wait like an hour and then I publish it on Spotify for creators which again, and I'm not a huge fan of Spotify nor Spotify for Creators, but it's functional. So it's kind of like my second, it was the primary. Now it's going to move into second source, I guess you could say. So Buy Me an Update and Coffee Solo now have RSS feeds and can be found in multiple places. And YouTube is one of those places. So you can listen to Coffee Solo and Buy Me an Update if you visit the youtube.com/@Dan Hugo. That's me. And there's a link to those from the Spotify for Creators profile page. So some of these things will be tricky to find, but should I include the YouTube link here because it's also on the homepage? I want to try to reduce the number of self-promotion links. There have been 4 forever. Now there could be 5. There could be more. I would like it to be less. If people are really interested, you can click on the homepage, Coffee Solo homepage, which is just my own site, which I'm relaunching. So it's not much to look at as I'm speaking right now, danhugo.com. I've had that domain for decades. No, I'm not sure when I registered that. No, when would that be? When is that? We can actually just check. I think we can still check. It is, I registered danhugo.com in 2004, August 25th, 2004. Wow. Who knew? So yeah, Buy Me an Update and Coffee Solo are sort of my personal one-off things. So no websites for these, but you can just find the stuff on danhugo.com. So there you go. I should probably start doing more written word effort. I used to publish on Medium. I used to write articles there from time to time. Now there's still some really good writing on Medium. So I pay $5 a month to have access to the members only stuff and whatnot. Medium has been sort of controversial, but I do like some of the content that is published there. Oh, I just spilled some tea. How awesome am I? Hold on. Okay, we're back. I stuck in the da-da-da so that it doesn't get removed from when I truncate silence. Otherwise, I would just say, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So there was a pause there. So I was about to take a sip of my yerba mate, which I'll talk about at the end of the episode. But I had just added some, I will say, hot water, but it's not boiling or anything. So it was a little full. Anyway, so yeah, I'm still playing with the links and how to hopefully be reachable by more people in more places and see where this goes with all of my programs. Anyway, why does my head hurt? That's the first item on my agenda outline. So the place where I live recently changed hands to a larger property behemoth. And so they have an arrangement with a company called Built. I think it's actually called Built Rewards, BILT. So we pay our rent there every month, right? And you get points and there's offers and deals and okay, great. So every month I've been paying fine. I actually was trying to think. I don't think I've had any issues paying rent any month in recent memory anyway. Not in the last, since I've lived in Vegas. So 12 years. So now I will also point out I have a credit union that is a little wonky. About once I'm going to say twice a year, maybe 3 times, I will get the debit for credit problem with them. So there will be some sort of an ACH payment transfer, whatever, electronic fund transfer that will, the funds will become available right after. And the first of the month, this month was September 1st was Labor Day. So that may have been an issue. I don't know. Anyway, so I was looking at my bank transaction records on Tuesday, and I saw this EFT returned, and I was like, I've never seen that before, ever. What's going on here? And then I could see, oh, wait, there was a transfer that should have happened that looks like it happened after. So I paid on the 1st, and it looks like, so everything was shifted by a day, right? It looks like they attempted to initiate the EFT, and then and this is the fun part, right? The funds will be available by the time the ACH transfer actually takes place. So this is sort of a draconian, overly pedantic check, right? They should say, oh, you don't have funds available. Hey, you didn't have funds available to initiate this transaction. You should start again, because I think we had to sign up with Plaid, Plaid. Plaid is a site that or a service. I don't really care for it because of the way it functions, but they enable financial services to connect with bank accounts that don't support other API methods and means and whatnot, so that they can do things like checking funds availability. So ideally, I would have received some sort of an email, hey, we couldn't process your submission because, and I would have looked and said, oh, and then, oh, now you can. Okay, so it's the second, it's after a holiday weekend. Okay, this is the 1 or 2 times a year, or maybe third. And I have actually done that, probably not with Built. And again, it's my credit union's a little wonky. It's America First. I didn't pick it because of the name. I picked it because they're literally across the street from where I live. They were across the street from where I used to live also. So I've been banking with them for 12 years. They have improved quite a bit, but they still are not totally wonderful. To give you some idea, if you know what PII is, personally identifying information, I called one time when they declined my debit card at a 7-Eleven by the airport in Phoenix when I was jumping on the light rail. And so I called and said, what's going on? Well, first we have to identify you. And the person read me my email address and said, is that your email address? And I said, okay, put your manager on. You don't know what you're doing. That's not how you verify personally identifying information. So I see this happen. So I contact Built through chat because I wanted to have a written record. I said, okay, I have this, and what happens now? Can I resubmit or what? And they were like, oh, I'm not really sure. That's where I started banging my head on the table. Wait, your job is to take payments for rent. And my bank well, did your bank reverse the charges? No, this was you initiating an ACH transfer and the bank reporting back that there were insufficient funds, NSF, not sufficient funds at the moment. So can I just resubmit? Well, we have to wait and see if it times out, and then if it fails, whatnot. So they're treating it like it's just a thing. And I'm like, yeah, but you kind of have to pay your rent within a certain window and this and that. So the support person was completely oblivious to how payment processing works, how their processing works, how they handle this situation in general. And I said, I'm just amazed that I'm the first one that's ever encountered this with Built, which he had there was nothing. I don't even know if it was a person. So then later in the day, I walked over to my credit union and I said, okay, what's the situation from our side? And they said, okay, so they tried to start an ACH transfer. There were insufficient funds at the time. So they weren't able to do it. So it was returned. So I used the word canceled. That's not the word the teller used, but I said, basically they've canceled their transfer. That's important. So I said it was canceled. And she said, but the funds are there now. So if they redo it, I don't know if they're going to retry. Some places do, some places don't. I said, okay, great. Good to know. So I get back on chat with a new person, Kevin the robot. So to make a long story short, because I was on there for 80 minutes, I said, look, here's what happened. I talked to my credit union. So the transaction's not going to proceed unless I resubmit it. So what happens if I resubmit it? Oh, I don't really know. Like, does your entire support team not know how you guys function as a payment receiving company? So 80 minutes through the 80-minute chat, which I have the whole thing, at some point the person repeats and says, well, now that we know that your credit union canceled it and they reversed the charges. And I said, no. You tried to initiate an ACH transfer. So you were trying to pull funds, and my credit union responded with there are insufficient funds at the time the request was initiated. Well, okay, so your credit union canceled it. And I said, well, that's my word. You're just repeating my words back to me. You're not using your language. You're not using your process. You don't know how to even describe what's happening. So you're just repeating what I said. This is usually a bad sign. Like if you go to a doctor and you say, I think I have hemangioblastoma. And he's like, oh, how long have you had a hemangioblastoma? And you're like, well, I don't know if I have one. I think I do. And they just keep using that word now because you used it and they're just going to keep using it. So this is the loop I was stuck in for 80 minutes. And at the end of the day, I received a notification. So then I go to the leasing office where I live. Oh, it says here you paid on the 1st. You're fine. And I said, yeah, but I know I'm not. So now what happens? And everybody seems to be shrugging their shoulders. Well, long story short, I get this like really terse and sort of rude email at 6:30 p.m. on the 3rd of September that there was an NSF and the electronic check was returned, and now I have to pay $100 and this and that. Now, I had been notifying the management here from the moment this was, I found this out, and then what I learned from the chats. The take home is this, and this is why I'm hitting my head and it hurts. Bilt has no idea what payment processing is and how it functions and what their policies are regarding a scenario like this. They just had no idea. Because I was honest in my response, I used words like incompetent and wasting time. You guys don't know how your systems work. I wasted 80 minutes. That prompted a support survey email and then a follow-up from somebody named Claire who went through their Zendesk ticket and told me some other things. I'm like, this is not why I chatted with you. You're giving me, I'm very happy that you've told me all this, but this is not the problem. So then I get another one and I said, clearly you guys are incompetent. You can't answer this simple question about how you process payments, and that's what you do. And so I get another follow-up from a new person named Tony with an I. Hey, Dan, this is Tony taking over from Claire. So I respond, we just wanted to follow up. And I responded and said, hey, Tony, this conversation is over. Close the ticket and you can talk amongst yourselves. So really, really at the end of my patience budget for that one. They were completely unable to help me. It cost me $100 because they couldn't tell me how to rectify the situation. It's essentially, oh, sorry, you clicked send and that's the way it is. So, and then of course the leasing office doesn't answer emails, which I suspect is probably an HR scenario. In other words, try this out at home, kids, or actually at work. I just bumped into the microphone thing. If you contact HR with something that may be sensitive, they will probably call you back. Why is that? Because paper trails are not as good. So when you send an email like that, first of all, because of document retention policies and legal and all this, they're going to have to keep a record of that email that you sent them. Or maybe you faxed or something. So you sent some sort of a record. So they're going to call you back, and they may even call you in for a meeting, and they're not going to take notes or have a transcript of the meeting. So now there's some wiggle room. Wait, why is this? Isn't HR there to help me? No. So HR people work for the company. They're there to protect the company from you. So some of the policies that they put in place to support, employee health and well-being and so on, is to make sure that you are okay working for the company so that you don't complain or cause trouble. I know that sounds cynical, but check me on that. Now, some HR people will be more human and they'll be helpful and pleasant and so on, but an HR person works for the company. They're there to protect the company from the human resources. So similarly, leasing management and so on at a rental property, especially when you work for a big company. Hey, how you doing? That's being pleasant, but responding to an email about something like this, because when I spoke to the very same person I was emailing, oh yeah, no, it shouldn't be a problem. And at the end of the conversation, I appreciate you. Not enough to respond to emails though. So that's been an interesting thing, and it's a learning experience to be sure. A learning experience to be absolutely sure. So now Bilt is kind of on my it's not on my holiday card list. I don't have one of those, so I don't really care. But yeah, profoundly, I used the words profoundly frustrating and disappointing. But now I know. Do not contact Bilt support because they don't know what they're talking about. And do not email the leasing people here at this company. Well, I can email them, but don't expect a response. So there will be a paper trail in one direction. And by not they don't acknowledge it in writing, but if I walk into the office, this has happened multiple times now. Oh yeah, I saw your email, and then they'll answer me in person. So that's always fun. All right, enough about that. I'm I'm already feeling better for venting, so thanks for listening. I have been breaking in one of my Amazon Vine items, which happens to be some light duty hiking boots of sorts. I think they were $70, free for the Amazon Vine reviewers like myself. But I was like, oh, that's a reasonably high dollar item, and I haven't had hiking, and these are not like big, heavy, go drop into some mud up to your ankle or something. These are nice. These are nice, but they are $70. So I've been trying to break them in. Now, I have a combination. I have a combination of stiff footwear to contend with. I don't know if you've ever tried walking. These are fairly stiff, and they do go up the ankle a bit. So it just feels like they're not like ski boots or something, but they're kind of constraining your motion. They're not like wearing cross trainers or sneakers or certainly like slippers or something. They're not they don't have leeway for you to play with. So when I'm walking, and I've been breaking them in I have a standard 1.6 mile loop. I think it's 1.6. So that's where I started when I was getting back to walking with my ankle injury. So it's the shorter loop. I have another loop that's about 2.3 and another one that's about 2.6. And I can walk to the gym. That's about a mile each way and so on. So I have all these different sort of standard different distances today. So I can kind of judge how I'm doing. Quantified self aside, I just have a sense like, oh, okay, I can probably do that and it's taking longer. I will say, for those of you keeping track of my recovery process, the 1.6 mile, I should be able to do that in about 30 minutes of a casual walk, and it's on a sidewalk. Gotta wait for traffic now and then, so it's usually about 30 minutes. But now, since I'm taking it easy a little bit, coming back from the brink, it usually takes more like 40 minutes. So that's fine. The wearing these, so I've done it 3 times now. It's very painful because they're very stiff, and they're getting a little bit better, but I've also found that they're sized small. So Amazon usually makes a recommendation of some sort, and I go, based on a million other people that have bought these, you should get a size whatever. But it turns out, because this is a new product, Vine reviews are usually for new products, no helpful hint. So I just went with the size I usually get for sneakers and shoes and whatnot, which is usually fine. But these run either they design them to be like this, but these are right on. Like my toe is right to the edge. And so they just feel tight. And I'm going to guess that in a hiking boot, you don't want to have a lot of moving around. And that's why you can tie yourself in so tightly with the laces going up and the hook loops. Hook and loop or whatever. Not Velcro. I mean, like you there's eyelets that you pass the laces through, and then there's some hooks at the top there, so you can, anyway, if you know what I'm talking about, great. So that has been super challenging. And so it's really taken a lot out of me, to be honest, just because it becomes it's like trudging, because my ankle is still recovering. It's gotten a lot better, but now it's kind of moving backwards. I'm not saying this has been injurious, but I am saying like I don't think I'm working backwards. I think I'm making it sore. When you go back to the gym and you haven't been for a while. But these are really taxing my walking because they're stiff and because they're not comfortable yet. We'll put the yet in parentheses with a question mark. So, and then add to that, my left knee so it was right ankle, left knee is continuing to give me trouble from all the favoring of my ankle. And so if any doctors out there, exercise physiology, anyone, my left quadricep is like totally cramped. It's like super duper tight, and I need to get it to relax or release, as they say, so that my knee won't have so much tension on it on one side. So it's hugely asymmetric, and it makes it feel weird when I'm walking. And so you add these boots in, and it's been quite a challenge. So I'm staying in this weekend to try to get back on my feet. I think I actually have a blister too, or the beginnings of one. It hasn't really risen yet, but there's a place on my right foot that's like, ooh, that feels like something's going on there. So yeah, I don't know about these. The review might not be so great for these. We'll give it a couple more days. And by the way, speaking of Amazon Vine stuff, my review period ends on September 20th. So I need to wrap up a ton of reviews. And I have so many boxes again. I've mentioned this before. There is something to be said for not getting too much crap from Amazon. And when you're getting, 10 things for free in one box or 2 boxes or whatever, yipes. So this has been something of a challenge. I kind of have mixed feelings about it. As I've said before, I've because you can pick the things you want to review. So fine. So I get the thing, or I get 10 things, but that comes with boxes. But I also get 10 things that I wouldn't have purchased. I'm like, oh, okay, that looks interesting. I have 2 more coffee scales than I need because I already have 1. So now I have 2 more. I have what? I have 3 coffee grinders. I have, I think I have 3 WD2, the Weiss distribution technique, those little steel needle things. I have 3 of those because at some points I'd be like, oh, I can try that one. I'll compare it to the other one. I have silicone mats to put under coffee machines. I have mugs. I have some ramen bowls. I have tons of bento boxes. I have 4 insulated lunch bags. The insulated lunch bags are kind of cool. Those are practical. If you don't have a car and you're gonna walk to a grocery store, but you're gonna get something cold, frozen this or whatever, you want to have some sort of thermalated. You want to have a thermally insulated something to carry it back. If I was going to go walk a mile to the Albertsons or to the Sprouts and get some ice cream or something, which I've never done, I would throw an ice pack in there and it'd be fine. And then I have these bento boxes. So if I ever wanted to go somewhere with a lunch, instead of paying Vegas prices, which we'll touch on in a second, I'm all set. So I've always had a fascination with lunch boxes and so on. And the new trend is stainless steel bento boxes that can be microwaved because they come with like a plastic shell. And I have not tried that, but I'm tempted and yet frightened. Right? Anybody that's grown up with microwaves from 3 decades ago. Oh, I was going to put this stainless steel thing. No, no. But they say it can be done. I don't know. We'll see. We will see. So I did 2. So I have 4 lunch bags. The last 2, put on the hike boots and throw an ice pack in the lunch bag and walk 1.6 miles. So that's 40 minutes at 90-degree temperatures here in Vegas. Not that those are ending, but it looks like the temperatures are dropping a tiny little bit and the humidity is here. I think I'm going to comment on that later. So yeah, I walk 40 minutes at 90-degree temperature. I'm like, when I write the review, because I've done this twice before, oh yeah, this is a reasonable test to make sure that my lunch the ice pack and all that will stay at a reasonable temperature in hot weather when I'm walking to a bus stop or waiting for the carpool or getting into my car, whatever it is. So when I write my reviews, I do real reviews, but it is sort of tedious and like, do I need 2 more coffee scales? Do I need 3 more crappy hand grinders? I already have 2 good hand grinders and I have a Baratza, sort of the entry level, mechanical burr grinder, conical mechanical burr. So did I need those? No, but like, oh, they're free. Why not? Yeah. So I have mixed feelings about this. By the 20th, if I can get to 90% of my items reviewed, I think I might be eligible for gold, but I've been really kind of apathetic at this point because it gets really fatiguing to just keep ordering crap from Amazon. I don't know how people do it sitting at home ordering from QVC or whatever. Like, oh, another thing I don't need, except I got to pay for it. That's ridiculous. So as I mentioned, the weather in Vegas is finally cooling off, sort of. The monsoons are finally here by all accounts. It's been raining. I think early this morning there was a lightning alert, which I didn't know my phone would tell me about at 2 a.m, but just in case, hey, lightning struck 7 miles away. Or actually, I don't even know if they have lightning strikes. They're just reporting lightning. It had to be a strike because lightning 7 miles away doesn't tell me anything. It just means lightning is in the sky somewhere. So yeah, we got the monsoons though. Monsoons, if you are not familiar, is when you live in a desert like Arizona and Phoenix. We used to get them every year, or Vegas gets it. So you get this humidity that just rolls in. And because of the terrain, the mountains and so on, especially in Phoenix, this humid clump of air just comes in and just sits there. So you end up with sort of stifling air, not much in the way of wind or breeze. Then you'll get lightning and you'll get rain, but it's still hot. It's not 100, but it's like 90, 85, 90, 92, whatever. So that's kind of where we are now. It can be like in the evenings when I first moved to Vegas 12 years ago, because it tends to be a little bit cooler than Phoenix. Like, oh, the monsoons are here. The weather's a little bit nicer, a little bit. You get a little bit of a wet sort of, the rain is a little bit warm. So it's like, oh, that's nice. And the air, maybe it's when it's raining, the air is a little bit cooling because it's a little bit of an evaporative effect, but, it's not great. Now we know why people in the South, especially like if you're in Houston or if you're in anywhere in the South, really, but Houston has that plateau thing. So the humidity just sits there. Same with Austin, but Houston's worse in the humidity sense. It's only 90 degrees, but it feels like you didn't shower for a month because you've never dried off. We've always been showering. Production by a street. When I stayed in Austin with a friend of mine from college, he said that right away. Well, if you want to take a bath or shower, just know that once you do, you will not be dry for the rest of your stay here. And that was true. And when I went to Shenzhen for Maker Faire many years ago, some other fellow visitors from the U.S. were like, have you found it to be a little bit humid? I'm like, yeah, I can see how humid it is on your shirt because you're as wet as I am. That's crazy. So yeah, the dry heat thing is real. It's nice when your sweat can evaporate off you. When it's 110, 115 with 10% humidity, that can happen. When it's 50% humidity, not as much. Not as much. I don't know if you're keeping track of the Chorus and Taylor Lorenz fight that's going on. Chorus, if you're smart, you haven't been keeping track of any of this, but Chorus was this left, I don't know if they call it the left or liberal or if they're explicitly Democratic Party. I think they do support the Democratic Party from a, election campaign support, whatever perspective. I don't care that much. Like, I don't really want to hear concerted efforts from any special interest group. I'd rather just kind of get some idea of what's going on in the world. Hopefully with bias that I can identify, right? You can't have unbiased, but at least you know where Tucker Carlson's coming from. Hopefully he will go back there. And where, let's pick another one. Like, where Hassan Piker's coming from. He also gets on my nerves. A lot of these people get on my nerves, but I do sample what they have to say and get some perspective and try to come up with my own. I do a lot of reading too. So this Chorus thing was really the way it was presented in December when I first heard about this. Okay, we just lost the election. We need a Joe Rogan of the left, blah, 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 blah. So we're going to get together and try to be supportive financially and through trainings and networking and connections and so on. We're going to build up the alternative media YouTubers and podcasters and all that on the left, and we'll have training and branding and networking, how to get a congressperson on your YouTube channel when you only have 1,000 followers, so how to build up your channel. So it was going to be this, like, the way it was presented, a grassroots, like, hey, we need to be a stronger presence in this new media landscape. And I'm like, that makes sense. Sorry, a little tea there. And so I saw this. I was like, okay, interesting. The person that was driving it, his name is Brian Tyler Cohen. I find him to be annoying. Too much. He's just too much. So, I haven't really been tracking that stuff. There are a couple of alternative media people that are kind of interesting. And it's like, they come through the way that the reporting is done when you are highly ideological, like you've picked a side. Like Fox News, you can say that too. But when you have independent news people, put that in quotes, that are going to pick a side and do the reporting from that side through their lens. They're not skilled at that, so they're just presenting the story and they're speaking to their audience and they're like, I can't believe this happened. That guy's an idiot. And then the same story from the other side will be, the other side did this and that. So, I mean, the biases are blinking. They're blinking lights. There's no mistaking them. There's no missing them. So it's probably better, healthier. I don't know. But it becomes tedious and it wears me down. I think I've mentioned this before. I kind of moved over to watching movie reaction videos. And lately I've been watching beard meets food eating videos, which are really ridiculous. And by the way, he never, when people say, what's your YouTube channel? He says beard meets food. He doesn't tell people that it's MEATS. He says, just look for beard eating a lot. You'll find me, which is true, but it's kind of strange. But yeah, I just got tired of, so much, and it's still going on. Obviously, everything has got to have a bent, pro this, anti that. And there is so much to be wary of. So you pretty much got to get the telling of stories from different angles and see what you come up with yourself. And so that's the extent of my day-to-day alternative media consumption. Anyway, Chorus versus Taylor Lorenz. She published an article in Wired, and now I checked this, and somebody said it was published on Wednesday, which would have been the, thank you. Got to move to the preview. The 27th, when I looked at it, it was published on the 30th, I think. So I during my podcast episode of FFS Talks, which was on Thursday this week, I said, I don't know why I got the sense it was published in the middle of the week. So it may have been published in the middle of the week, but the Wired story, let's look at it right now. The Wired story, oh, wait a minute. Now it says the 27th. Because when I looked at it, I say it during my podcast. I'm like, it says the 29th or 30th, whatever it was. Maybe I'm just going nuts. Anyway, so it was published 1 week and 3.5 days ago. And it's just been a torrent of reactions, mostly negative, mostly anti-Taylor Lorenz. And I will say, not a big, huge Taylor Lorenz fan. She's okay, but as this story, so she wrote it as as a freelance. That's not been made clear. She had a contract with Wired. I don't know if the contract was to write this article or if it was to write a series or something. She hasn't really disclosed that as far as I'm aware. And I'll get to that part in a second. But so she wrote this article. My FFS Talks episode was about context in modern media, which is basically, now I don't know if Chorus is a bad actor in this. It doesn't smell good. But I do refer to when this guy, Brian Tyler Cohen, first started talking about this in December. He put out a couple of YouTube videos. And he's like, we want to enable this. We want to get consistent messaging. We want to help people get online and do their, develop their channels. And so it sounded like we have a strategy to try to band together, almost like a guerrilla media effort. So to me, if you're saying that up front, transparently, and those videos are still there and everything's good, not that, you know what I mean? You can see those today, this many months later. To me, part of the story is, okay, how do you go from that to now so much weirdness? And I don't want to rehash this yet again. So if you've been tracking this, great. Otherwise, really, you're better off. But the take home is, with the modern media landscape, with so many people pretending to be reporters, and by that I mean not everybody has gone through journalism school, not everybody is aware of journalistic ethics. One of the issues that Taylor Lorenz raises is that the members of the Chorus cohort who were receiving the top, any money, but they were, some were receiving $8,000 a month, some were receiving $250 a month, but they're not disclosing that. And there may have been a contract that said you are not allowed to disclose your relationship with Chorus. And then where was the money coming from? Was that really clear? Is it coming from a so-called dark money group and billionaires that are trying to emphasize, skew or control the messaging? Anyway, of course, that's what they're paying for. So Are they controlled by the DNC? Do they have direct ties? And so there's all these questions swirling around. So my point was, if you're going to try to do something, the more transparent you are, or the more context you can provide to people over time, probably the better. Because later, because some of the questions that are being raised are like, why don't you you refer the contract? Why don't you have a copy of the contract? And they said, well, because they don't want to risk disclosing who was sharing this contract. Would violate their NDA. To me, Wired probably should have tried to get a contract from them. So one of the points made is, hey, this isn't, there haven't been any corrections, no retractions. Nobody from the Cora side has come up and raised any specific points and said, look, here's the contract. Here's where you're wrong. They don't even have to disclose it. They could do it with the attorneys at Wired. So some good points made there. On the other hand, how come some of these other things are not disclosed? How come there's not a better description of this? And again, the context of the reporting. And I personally think there could have been a real learning. These are learning moments, right? What not to do, or as news consumers, what to look for, right? So I think this has become too divisive without being the learning or teaching moment that it really should be, which is the media landscape is becoming chaotic and money is being injected all over the place. So you don't know who to believe and when and how. Suddenly you think aliens are delivering, vaccines to wherever, there's just who knows what's going on and who knows where the sources are. There's really inadequate sourcing. That's a journalism thing, right? So if you're just like, hey, I heard a thing on YouTube, and you make that a 30-minute episode of your YouTube content and you monetize that, like, oh, all I have to do is talk about what other people are talking about. So the media landscape is getting really weird, and I don't know that Taylor Lorenz, as this example in this scenario, is doing much better than what Chorus is doing in a different way. But yeah, it's basically a lot of whoever gets the loudest, the higher ground, can just start hurling news stories, news reporting, and it goes from there. So I have some reservations about this. But in my perspective, we have our nonprofit Innovate for Vegas Foundation. I've been saying this for just over 3 years that we've been trying to get this going. We should always give attribution to people. We should be clear about who's sponsoring us. We shouldn't take sponsor money to control what we're doing. They can be supportive, but we're not going to do projects, or, we're not going to be a service bureau for cheap. So very transparent. And then we have, I have I have two more than I think I started the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program 2 weeks before Cafe Genius. So I think we have 134 episodes, was it? Let me look real quick. Do I want to look real quick? Yeah. Let me look real quick. Innovate for Vegas Foundation has 133 episodes published of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program, which means at any given time you can go back through the transcripts now that are on YouTube, or you can listen to the audio or whatever. Everything has been as consistent as it could be, unless there have been circumstantial changes, right? I think being transparent and talking about these things, or publishing documents, or making contracts visible and available and whatnot, because when you don't, and somebody raises a question and all you can do is say, oh, they're lying, it becomes problematic. And I think that does not help the future of this so-called independent media, because it just becomes a free-for-all of finger pointing, and I think it's a disservice. So kind of frustrating to watch. But I express my views in the FFS Talk audio program, so if you're not keeping track of that stuff, more power to you. Speaking of getting on to other things, it's going to be that time of year again here in Las Vegas with the Las Vegas Startup Week. Startup Week. When you say week, you probably think, oh, like, so Monday through Friday, or maybe a weekend or something. No. Las Vegas Startup Week starts on Wednesday, September 17th, and it runs through Saturday, September 20th, which means Startup Week is 3 weekdays, and then they're ending it on the weekend of Tech Alley. Tech Alley is always on the third Saturday of every month, so that people don't have to actually check their calendars. They just go, oh, I'm a robot, and I can just go there like usual. So to me, Tech Alley, that's like saying, oh, part of your vacation takes place on New Year's. Well, that's not really a vacation day. That's like a national holiday. So I don't count Tech Alley as a part of Startup Week. They do. So they say, oh, it's 4 days of, well, okay, it's 3 days, 3 days of programming and 1 day of the same thing every month. So 3 days of programming. And my point on that is, if this is indeed the next Silicon Valley, the innovation, the global hub of innovation, or the global innovation hub that rivals the Silicon Valley, rivals the San Francisco Bay Area, as I think how they've worded it, shouldn't your startup week be more than 3 days at this point? And then Global Entrepreneur Week is coming up in November, and I don't know if it's going to be coincident with the, the Formula One race week. I think they've done that twice now, and hopefully they've learned their lesson. Like, nobody cares about Global Entrepreneur Week. They want race cars. So hopefully they're going to do a better job. But I'll tell you right now, Las Vegas Startup Week has a website, and you will never hear about it. You will never, ever hear about it. And I've made this point before to people here, like, how come nobody recognizes and celebrates the entrepreneurial efforts that are happening? Our local media covers crime, politics, construction and demolition, entertainer residences, whenever somebody hits a jackpot, car collisions, pedestrian car collisions, when there's a death involved especially, occasionally a child trafficking or a human trafficking problem, a crime. That is a crime, by the way. So they don't really get into like, oh, by the way, put down your poker chips for a second. Let those dice cool off for a few minutes here while we talk about the startup scene in Vegas and how this is going to be the next. Hey, everybody. Hey, hello. Because they just don't make it interesting, and they don't have much to cover. I've been here for 12 years. They've been talking about some of these things for 12 years. They don't run with good ideas. They run with ideas that seem good because, oh, okay, is some small select group of people going to make money from this? Okay, good. We'll pursue that. And then, local media doesn't cover it. So to this day, I have no idea how the powers that be here believe that they are going to turn this region into some haven for entrepreneurs and innovation when they spend so much time and effort supporting the fun economy. That's where it's at. Right. And 25% of the economy, by the way, is healthcare, because we do have an aging population. People come here and retire for the weather, mostly. Despite my comments about the humidity and whatnot, it's reasonable here, and there's plenty to do. There's golf. There's no shortage of restaurants. You can go gamble all day. You can do there's sightseeing. So the Southern Nevada region is probably a nice retirement area. The Phoenix has a huge retirement population. So healthcare is a chunk. I don't know if it's 22 or 25. Depends on where you look. So that's an area that they're focusing on. Innovation and entrepreneurialism, they're really making it sound like, again, this is the next Silicon Valley. We're a global innovation hub, and then we're just never going to tell you about it. That's probably a problem. But I did mention the fun economy, so I do have to remind you that the fun economy is a trademarked term of art. That the trademark is held by the UNLV Office of Economic Development, which is led. I know the effort to get the trademark was led by Bo Bernard. I think he's now a VP of something there. So congratulations, way to go. So the fun economy, nobody is trademarked the next Silicon Valley or Global Innovation Hub. I think those are probably generic, but they definitely need to get that trademark for fun economy. And the LVCVA, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, visitors. I think it's visitors plural. There's no apostrophe. In other words, it's not the Visitors Authority. It's the authority about visitors. And whoever else gets on this, the LVCVA is part of the Formula One race stuff, for example. So they were named in several lawsuits because of stupid planning. They have a new campaign. Now, the LVCVA drove, as far as I'm aware, they drove things like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and then it changed to only in Vegas, and there have been some other variations on this theme. So it's the marketing tagline, it's the hashtag, whatever. So they've given the downturn, it's been about 10, 11% year over year per month. If you look at headlines, they're like, oh, July tourism is down another 11%. Well, that is not exactly because they're comparing last July to this July. They're not comparing July to June. So it didn't drop by 11% from June. It's 11% below what it was a year ago. But the headline is sexier. Well, it's just continuing to slide. Vegas is dead. Well, maybe, maybe not. At 10%, if you can't weather a 10% reduction in tourism. And by the way, gambling revenue is actually up slightly. So my theory is that locals are getting out of the house more and saying, oh, there's none of those pesky California people around. I moved here from California. So, hey, we can go down and do some gambling at the new Circa on Fremont, or we can go to the Strip and see whatever show or whatever it is. So if you're only my yerba buena is cooling off, but I'm not going to add water yet. So if you're only going to look at room occupancy and, they look at the airport inbound and outbound and so on. So they look at these things and say, how many tourists do we have? They could look at things like how many people are attending shows, how many people, gambling revenue obviously shows up. So it's kind of interesting to see how this is all playing out. My view on this is we should be waiting till like November. But like you can't really, you're trying to measure things like that are happening right now. Like, oh my God, the world is falling apart because of last month's tourism numbers compared to last year. Okay, well, let's look at the whole year. Unless we can and then there's nothing you can do about it. You're not going to magically say, we better have plus 10% next month to make up for the minus 10% this month from a year ago. Unless you're the LVCVA, then you craft a campaign called, wait for it, Welcome to Fabulous Las Vegas. They even have the sign ready. So it's to get people to get their travel plans pointed back to Vegas, especially if you're from Canada, because our Canadian tourism is down by some percentage. And Canada makes up a nice chunk of the total international visitor base that comes to Vegas, month over month, year over year, etc. So we got to get that sorted and come on out. Get your travel plans pointed back here and come to Vegas. There is no word yet whether they have realized what people have been shouting en masse. Like every single tourist that has asked this question has the same answer. And Bloomberg, the news outlet, labels Vegas as a luxury good. Yes, it is too expensive. I know, crazy, right? We're not talking gambling losses. We're talking room rates. We're talking fees that are tacked on to rooms. We're talking dining out. We're talking drink prices. We're talking entertainment in general. So everything about coming to Vegas is way more expensive. The example that most people use is, remember you used to come to Vegas for the buffet and you get the, $5 all you can eat or $2 steak and the list goes on. And those are, back in the day. Now, I will say when I first moved here 12 years ago, there was some of that. So it's not like this is the 60s, bygone era. This is not long ago. Maybe it wasn't quite so reasonably priced, but it wasn't ridiculous like it is now. So it's not clear how they're going to convince people to come here without saying, oh, by the way, we're going back to prices from the 80s. That seems like that would be an interesting approach, right? Like Vegas wide. You can't really say citywide because Vegas and the Strip are two different things, as you might know. But the fun economy is dialing the calendar back to September of 1983. That'd be kind of interesting. Nobody ever asked me for my opinion on these. But it is interesting. McDonald's, for example, they kind of got off their dollar menu. So as their prices have creeped up, even for McDonald's food, McDonald's and food are two words that maybe belong in separate sentences. I worked at McDonald's. I know. I've been there. I've cooked that food. F-U-D. Even they've recognized, and so they're changing some of their prices. They're bringing down some of their price items to attract, maybe with loss leaders or something. And we're starting to see some all-inclusive stays at the Plaza on the Strip. I'm sorry, on Fremont, or I think somebody was doing that on the Strip. I cannot remember if it was Resorts World that was going to have no fees until the end of September, no additional fees. So there's some pockets of effort, but it just seems to me there's got to be a top-down, like, Vegas is a good deal. Want to bet? Or something like that, right? Yeah. So, yeah, you've heard me sipping on my yerba mate or spilling it, as the case may be. I've really now, a few weeks later, really dialed in my yerba mate process. When I first started, I watched a YouTube video. I got my first gourd, Speaking of Amazon Vine, I received one larger gourd. I received one medium-sized gourd, and I received two little ceramic things that are not really gourds in the yerba mate tradition sense. They're just little ceramic. They're not even like, like Asian tea cups, maybe arguably, but yeah. So they came with the bombilla, the little straw, the metal steel straw. That one's silly. I don't even know why they call it a yerba mate anything. But basically the two, the larger and the medium-sized gourds that I have, the medium-sized one came with a thermos. Now, when I first watched the video and I got the large one, they're like, okay, pour in the yerba mate leaves, and then you shake it so that you have a little mountain. And so half of the gourd should have yerba mate stacked up, and that's supposed to get some of the larger leaves down to the bottom and the more granular stuff at the top, so you don't suck on the powder, the tea fines if you're a coffee drinker, right? So there's a method to the madness, and then you pour hot water into the pit at the base of the mountain, and so the water's supposed to go under, and it kind of goes up, and it steeps up into the tea, the yerba mate tea. So by the time you've gone through, so I heat up 350 milliliters of water. I pour some of it into the gourd today, and then I put the rest in the thermos. Now, I didn't get a thermos the first time, and they're like, oh, some water temperature between 65 Celsius and 80 Celsius or something. I'm like, okay, 80 Celsius, because it's going to cool. 80 Celsius brings out every bitter note that yerba mate has to offer. So when I first started this stuff with the big gourd, I got a ton of yerba mate in there. I'm like, oh, I guess you fill it up like this. Okay, water, 80 degrees. I'm like, oh my God, this tastes awful. And then I would reheat the water, 80 degrees. Still, this is horrible. And it would make me feel like not good. Like a little, maybe nauseous. I don't know. It was just so not good. So then I get the medium-sized one with the thermos, and I watched a different video, and it said, the hotter the water, the more bitter the tea. Now, I should have known this. I should have actually checked on it, but I just thought it was yerba mate, because yerba mate smells kind of the way it tastes, right? You're like, ooh, this is not like a wake up to a nice coffee smell. And you may think coffee tastes bitter, but it doesn't smell bitter. It can smell quite good. Like if you like a savory scent like that. Same with tea. Tea can smell really good, even though it doesn't taste like the way it smells. But here, yerba mate pretty much was tasting and smelling not as great. So, oh yeah, never go above 70 Celsius. So I was like, maybe I'll give it a try. And then you put the water in the thermos and you pour it in there and you keep it kind of at a comfortable level of moisture and temperature and so on. So now that I've done this, it's made a huge difference. It's actually drinkable. Yeah, so it's pretty good. Now, I also add stevia, green leaf, not the white sort of extracted stevia that's too sweet, like ridiculously sweet and kind of artificial tasting. So green stevia leaf, much more subtle. I put in about, I'm going to say a teaspoon or so, roughly, of green stevia leaf, and then I give it 1 or 2 pumps of some Torani hazelnut, which is arguably much sweeter. It's sugar-free, but it's much sweeter than the stevia now, and I think that I sweeten it with sucralose, unfortunately. But the sweetness, of course, helps, but it is much more mild at the 70-degree temperature. When I pour in the thermos water, it's probably, well, it hasn't cooled off in the thermos, but when I pour it into the thermos, you're basically losing heat to the stream of water as it's entering the thermos. I've never measured the temperature of the water in the thermos, but I'm going to guess it's probably lost 5 degrees of Celsius of temperature. So much better. So if you're a yerba mate drinker and you found it to be something you don't want to do, like, give it a try. Now, what I have found, and I'm enjoying the yerba mate right now. I try to drink it in the morning if I'm going to do it. I've been taking a break from my morning coffee, regular coffee ritual, and I've been trying out the yerba mate for the last, it's probably 4 weeks now. And I'm like, okay, let me see. I know yerba mate is very high in caffeine and whatnot. So I start out my morning with an empty stomach of nothing. I don't even have water. I do the yerba mate 350 milliliters of water, go through that, 350-ish. Whatever gets soaked up into the tea, obviously I don't have, but I basically finish that off. And then later I'll probably make a coffee. What I have found is really had an amazing, I don't know if it's good or bad, but a real impact, like a real tangible impact on my sleep schedule. I don't know if it's a good or bad yet, but I'll have this tea. So it's 8:50. So I'm almost finished with it. And maybe I'll have a coffee around 10 or 11. So I'm fine through the day, but then by the time it's 8 or 9 p.m., I'm like, oh, I just got to take a nap. And then I wake up at 3 in the morning and I'm like, oh, I guess I could wake up now if I want. So now granted, my sleep schedule can always move around, but it's such a weird, like there's a really steep drop off, 8 or 9 p.m. Normally I'm awake at those times. Normally I'm awake all the way through to 3 in the morning. So for some reason, the caffeine drops off very severely, very steeply. And then, so maybe the sleeping is better. I'm not really sure. And then about 3 in the morning, wake back up, sometimes 4, 3:30. Like, oh, okay. It's 4 in the morning, 3:30, whatever. Start the day. And so I've been awake at this point since about, well, we'll call it 4. I think it was 3:30. We'll call it 4 in the morning. So I've been awake for coming up on 5 hours. That's not magic, but it definitely has changed the nature of my waking and sleeping hours and the transition between them. So I will probably take a break from yerba mate and go back to just drinking coffee, and which I realize does have caffeine in it, of course, but it will go back to where I was before I was doing this yerba mate experiment. So we'll see where I end up from that. I mean, it's not really scientific, but it's always nice to have like a predictable, useful time of consciousness or time of useful consciousness. Which one of those? Before you drift off, especially if you're driving anywhere, but I haven't driven in a while. But that's something we can talk about next time, is the carefree life. It's been making a lot of news lately with the Zohran Memdani. Am I saying that right? Memdani? In New York, proposing free public transit and whatnot. There's a lot of talk about transit in cities. I follow this guy, David Zipper. Yep, like it sounds. He's pretty expert on going carless and optimizing public transit. He's actually against free public transit for some very good reasons. So there's a lot of stuff to ponder in there, and I would love to see Vegas become more pedestrian, since I don't have a car. But I wish our public transit system worked better, and I wish it was better structured and with better routes and scheduling. So maybe we can make that happen someday. It's my dream for no good reason. But seems like a good way to end. It's been, by my clock here, 1 hour, 9 minutes, and 5 seconds. So when I truncate silence, it'll probably be closer to like 1 minute, 1 hour 5, maybe. We'll see. So thanks for listening as always. And don't forget to check out the websites for different pieces of content. I have to have them, excuse me, the websites are not cross-linked yet. So I need to have all of them know about each other, so to speak. The buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo profile page has links to everything. I have always maintained that. So if I didn't have a website, which was true for a long time because I'm lazy, but always findable. But now the websites are making a return. I got to make them look nicer and think about how I want to make use of them. I would like to have some actual written word and so on, maybe transcripts there. Who knows? More audience interaction would be nice. If I have an audience, are you listening to this? Hello. I won't thump the microphone, but yeah. So check out the Coffee Solo. Can be found at ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/danhugo/post. Maybe that's where you found this today. It's also available on YouTube on the Dan Hugo channel. There's a podcast called Coffee Solo. Dan Hugo at Dan Hugo, DANHUGO. Can also be found on the Spotify for Creators profile page, and there you will find links to Apple Podcast, Amazon Podcast, Spotify. There's an RSS feed. There's a link to the YouTube channel there. There's a link to the homepage. How can you go wrong? So yeah, the next steps in my journey to massive celebrity is to enable people to locate me in more places. And I'm not a fan of social media, so don't look for an Instagram account or a Twitter account or a Blue Sky account. or any of the other things. If there is going to be one, it would be some sort of a Mastodon thing. More likely, my website should support ActivityPub so that you could just follow me on an ActivityPub enabled platform. That'll be version 1.1. All right. Thanks for listening. As always, happy Saturday. I'm going to go finish my yerba mate and grind some coffee beans. Take care. Take care. Take care. Bye-bye.